Hi everyone, and welcome to Tuesday's Tips with Kimberbell. My name is Lauri, and today we are talking about a brand new set of designs that I absolutely love. It's called Red, White, and Bloom, and I just adore this. So this is actually the book for the sewing version, but there is an embroidery book as well. So you can do sewing or embroidery for all of these cool projects that you see here. Now, there's also an embellishment kit. So I'm going to talk just a brief minute about the embellishment kit. This is a fabulous set of embellishments. And once you see the close-up details, which you'll be seeing throughout the next few weeks, of the quilt as well as the extra projects, you are going to just love them. You're going to be going, what? That is so cool. Because I absolutely love these. And the really cool fact of all of this is that it's available in both the embroidery and the sewing, as I mentioned. All right, so the embroidery or the embellishment kit comes with these cute specialty buttons, and we're talking darling little sunglasses, a soda pop bottle, a lemon, the watermelon. You're just gonna love this, the hot dog, and you're gonna see if you can spy them, if you will, as we go throughout the next few weeks. And I'm gonna show you first the feature quilt, which is this beautiful quilt. I just love this. And I don't know if you can see right up here at the top, see that firefly jar? I love this firefly jar, and it's got lit up little fireflies. Like that is just the cutest. I love this. And you can see that there's some really cute yo-yos. We've got our pull flowers. There's vinyl. There's really cute specialty buttons. And one of my most favorite blocks is this darling farm truck. The farm truck you've got to see up close. It's got these wonderful buttons in it, as well as a cute 3D banner that's hanging from it. And then my other absolute favorite is this Life is Sweet lemonade. It's a pitcher lemonade, and you can actually see those lemons. They're made separately, and then they're slid inside of that project as you embroider it in the hoop. It's so darling, and no worries, you can actually make the 3D lemons as well in the sewing version. So we're going to show you how to do that. You're going to love that. That is one of the really cool features of this quilt design pack. Now there's also some other designs that come in this, and I am so excited to show you some of these. So there's this cute, and again you see the cute little lemonade. When life gives you lemons, make something sweet, as well as a cute table runner, and this one, table topper, I guess. This one is actually the sewing version. Isn't that adorable? And I was like, how do we turn the lights on and off on this bag? Like, it's because it's fully lined. How do you get inside? There is a great little secret door here that they've made. It's a little Velcro. Hole right here, and you can go in and you can turn your lights on and off, so you're not wasting the battery when you're not actually using your tote. But of course you're going to be using your tote all the time. Alright, so now we're going to talk about some cool tips, and we're going to actually work on the firefly block. And so we're going to come to the workstation. Alright, welcome to my workstation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would go through the process, and there's a lot of helpful tips and hints, hopefully, that will help you in making your firefly block a success. And along with that, you can actually use these in both the sewing and embroidery version. Not all of them will be in the sewing version because there's a few steps that you won't need to do. But for the most part, you can use these tips in either one. All right, let's get started. The first thing I like to do is I'm going to take my background fabric that I've got, and this is for the firefly, and I actually do like to make sure that I give it a nice bit of starch. Okay, this is going to help with the stitching, keeping it nice and flat and no puckering. That's the first step. The second step is to make sure we add fusible backing. So right here I've got the Kimberbell fusible backing, and again I already have my piece cut. And the piece that I have cut is actually just slightly smaller than my other back. Now, the first thing I really like to do is put a little bit of heat right on the back. I like to warm it up, so to speak. So I'm going to warm this up, And the reason I like to warm that up is it gives a better or less time, or it'll take less time for you to actually adhere your fusible backing. Okay, and then the fusible backing, I like to give it a nice little shot of steam, and I hold it about 2, 3, 4 seconds. And you can actually see it when it starts to adhere. You'll see it starting to adhere right here on this side. So I'm just going to keep going with that. And I really like using steam because that loosens that fusible part of that backing very quickly. And as you can see, it stays right on. It's already nicely on. Okay, so now I have this ready. I'm going to do one more prep item, and of course that's my hoop, okay? So I'm going to get my hoop ready. Now I recommend, and it's also recommended in the book, that you use a lightweight mesh. It's a lightweight cutaway is what we also refer to it. If you've seen it before, it's like a mesh looking. That's why I call it mesh. But it's your light cutaway stabilizer. The reason we recommend using this in this particular situation, this is something that's going to stay in your project. So if you're making a quilt, you want it to be not really a stiff quilt. You want it to be soft and supple, if you will. So we'll use this particular cutaway, and I love that one. All right, and as you can see the slat bands. I'm keeping all my stabilizers straight with that. All right. So now I'm going to swap places here. The next thing you do is you're going to make the markings in the middle of your block, the background piece. And I finger press. You can see right there, I finger press that. And then I'm going to finger press it the other way. I just need the middle. Very simple, easy way to get to the middle. And then I'm going to actually trace the... I like to use chalk. You can use whatever, an iron-on if you want, whatever. At this point, you can use whichever. I just like a tailor's chalk or something. It's a great marking tool, and I can actually see the crease. That's how it's making it so easy for me to just go ahead and mark that middle, as I can see the crease, whoops, that I had just made. All right, and so now I've got my middle marked. And then you simply take this and you're going to place it in according to your hoop. And this is, I love these Viking hoops. This is a great hoop. And you're going to tape that down. Okay, so I like to tape it all the way around. Now we're going to move to some other squares or blocks that I already have completed. And we're going to cover quickly some of the other things that you will need to, maybe just some helps and tips that you're going to want in making the rest of your block. So as you can see, this one's quite taped down quite well, and I've already got to the step where I place my mylar. Now as you can see, there's 2 sets of mylar because they're kind of, the fireflies that are in the jar and the ones that are above the jar, okay? So at this stage, you actually will be peeling this, and it would still be in a hoop. I would just peel this away, and you can just tear this. Now look how easy that is to tear. Now the best thing about our Kimberbell tool set is, this is what I love about it. You can see these little tiny pieces. You can easily grab them and pull them away with your tweezers. I love this. This is like my favorite pair of tweezers for sewing and quilting. And so that is something I would highly recommend, is you just use little tweezers. It's so much easier to grab those pieces with a pair of tweezers than it is with your trying to scrape it with your little fingers or fingernails or whatever. Okay? Now I'm getting ready to place my jar. I'm going to turn this around so it's facing you. Now I've got my vinyl. I don't know if you can see that. This piece of vinyl right here. This comes in the embroidery kit, or your embellishment kit, I mean. And we've already got to the step right before you're going to place this. Now, does anybody see a problem with me placing it right this minute? If you zoom way in, you can actually see that there's some things that I've got to take care of, because once this vinyl is placed down, it's not coming back up. So first of all, I can see my line, right, my chalk line. So that's the first thing I've got to get rid of, all right, is your chalk line, okay? And then the next thing you're going to want to get rid of is your little pieces of mylar if there's any. I purposely left some so I could show you that's something that's important because you can't get in underneath this vinyl. Once it's stitched in place, you're not going to be able to get inside of this and get rid of those things, right? And it might bug you forever, right? So make sure that you get rid of those, all right? As well as this line. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we've got a few questions.
Okay, great.
So the first question is, someone asked, what if I iron and it's not sticking? Then what do I do?
Oh, that's a great question. If you are ironing and this backing is not sticking, you just either haven't got your iron on a high enough setting, I would turn your iron up, or you just need to leave it for a little bit longer. So again, I recommend steam, and I recommend heating the back up before ironing it on. You saw how quickly and easily it stayed and it stuck down, I guess, if you used a steam iron. So that's my recommendation on that. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, someone referring to when you did the finger press.
Okay.
They're wondering why you wouldn't press with iron.
Great question, yes. So if you notice when I finger press, it just made a small mark to where I knew, where to make my chalk markings, or you can just, obviously you can just measure it if you'd prefer. I just find it very simple and easy to do it that way. Now, if you were to press it with an iron, it makes a lot deeper crevice, okay? Now, if you have a deep crevice and it's behind this vinyl, and you were to go place this vinyl down and then you were trying to iron it out when your block is finished, you might have to apply a little too much heat to get a deep crease out, and I wouldn't want to risk ruining your piece of vinyl. So that's why I recommend just finger pressing that. Any other questions?
Yeah, the last question is, someone is wondering, what if we use something different than no-show mesh?
Great question. Okay, so like I said, it's up to you, personal preference. We recommend the no-show mesh because it's soft and very pliable. But if you use something that's a little heavier, that's okay too. It'll just make your quilt a little bit stiff. But if you're just using it as a wall hanging, that's not an issue. So these are great questions. I love having questions from you guys. All right, do we have any other questions right now? Not right now. Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so we want to make sure that we've trimmed everything. And the last thing I want to make sure that we do before placing that vinyl is you got to get those eyelet holes poked now, because if you try to make those holes with your vinyl on the front, you're going to damage your vinyl, okay? So I just simply pick this up, and I love these tweezers again, Kimberbell tweezers, and I just simply pop a hole right through there. Look how easy that is. And then once I get the hole in, I just kind of twist it, and it makes it a nice hole. Now, to make sure that hole is big enough before adding your vinyl, I highly recommend that you take your lights, your fairy lights, and you give it a try. So what I do is I bend this so that my fairy light can easily pop through the hole. And then, let's see if I can do this without getting it close to me. There we go. And then I make sure that that hole is big enough to pop that fairy light through. And I didn't make it quite big enough, see that? So I want to make sure that I've got it big enough. So I just need to go down a little bit deeper. All right. And now that fairy light is going to be able to show through. All right, so I've made my eyelet hole just a little bit bigger, and voila, there we go. And made sure that that fairy light, can you see that fairy light? Make sure that that fairy light will be able to pop through so that you can make sure that it's ready before placing that vinyl, okay? Now you can take the fairy light back out before you stitch the vinyl down, but now we know that that is going to work. So that's really important to make sure that you do that before moving on. All right, now we've got one that's already got the vinyl completely on, and I haven't trimmed the vinyl because I wanted to show you a trick that I like to do. Some people like to cut this way, right? I kind of like to cut the opposite when I'm doing vinyl. I always cut away, and then I know that I don't cut my stitches. All right? So I actually just, instead of cutting it like this, I cut it the opposite way. And if you use the duckbills, it gives you just enough thickness, if you will, between the stitches and your scissors, your scissor blade, that you will not cut your ever cut your stitches off, and yet it will cut close enough that you have a nice trim. Okay, so again, I do it the opposite way from what you would normally cut a applique piece. Okay, and the reason for that is I just don't want to cut those stitches at all, because they're done. We're not going to cover or get any closer to them, or recover them, I guess, with any other stitches. That is it. It's a raw edge applique, and so this is the best way that I find, and you can see how easy that was to cut. Didn't take me very long at all. All right, now the last thing, which is going to be the best thing, I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the way, but my most favorite part about, I love all these great tools that Kimberbell has given us in order to make our projects and make them great product. All right, so this is my Kimberbell Orange Pop Ruler set. Now this is great because you can actually, we're going to cut this finished block size to 4.5 by 10.5. So this is the cool part. The 4.5 is this width right here, the very inside one. And can you see how these rulers nest? That is really important to have that they're nesting, okay? So what we're going to do is nest the rulers. And before I nest the very last one, you want to make sure that you've centered that, okay? So I'm centering it this way, right? And this way. And then I'm going to lay my next one down and make sure, is it centered? There's a little arrow here. It goes right down the middle. Yes, that looks centered to me. And then I'm going to lay my last ruler down, and it actually makes it a lot easier to see if it's centered side to side. Now, I take into consideration everything from top to bottom. Now, you can see I want to scooch this just a little bit for my jar there. And then what I'm going to cut first is my sides. Don't cut across here, obviously. Just your sides, okay? And obviously it's not going to cut all the way top to bottom, but it gives us a great way to visually center this. Now I have this on a rotating mat, okay? Can you see that rotating mat? I love using rotating mats. This is great because you can actually not move your project, but yet stand in one location and you're able to cut, okay? So I've cut the two sides, okay? The two sides making up 4.5 inches. And then I simply take out one, take out two, okay? And then you're going to measure your 10.5. And this is my 8.5 by 10.5 inch ruler, okay? So now I can cut it this direction, and I'm going to rotate this, move stuff out of my way, sorry. And then I'm going to cut the top. All right. Now I've got the ends cut. You can see there's one end. Here's one end. Okay. And you can see the middle piece is cut here, but not all the way through. So I simply just lay down my ruler. I can use the same one again. I can nest it if I want to feel like I have something, you know, a little bit more significant to grab a hold of. And then I simply finish cutting from where I started up here and down there. All right? Just like that. And then I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I love this. Then you've got your piece cut by your 4.5 by 10.5 inches. All right. And here we go. And it just finishes off that cut, but you just line it up right with the cut that you already had. And there you go. And your piece is ready to stitch into your quilt. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully you learned a lot about different tips and orange pop rulers as well. Do we have any other questions before we are done today?
Yes, we have one last question.
Okay.
And they are wondering if you are using the square or rectangle orange pop rulers on this quilt?
That is a great question. I was using the rectangle set because it's the 4.5 by 6.5 and it goes up to the 10.5. However, there is a square set. So if you have the square set, make sure you get the rectangle set. You're going to want both sets in order to make it super easy to be able to, you know, cut all of these squares and blocks, if you will, in our quilt. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.